Hello. Okay. So today we're just going to be making a room with some walls and some windows and a door and a little square little person inside. Okay. So, going to open up a new window of 3ds Max 2012. Doesn't 2012 or 2013 doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure they're the same. But first thing we want to do is you want to make sure that you have all the settings that I have or that you're able to move around. Okay, so to navigate the viewport really quick, basically it's a combination of mouse buttons and keyboard buttons. So if you want to move like side to side in your viewport, just click the middle button and drag, and you'll just go side to side. And if you want to pan, you can hold Alt and the middle button, and then you can get like this. I don't know if this is panning or if this is just rotation, but you get this nice. You're able to go around objects to get a better view on them. And that's Alt and the middle button holding it down and holding them both down and dragging. And there's also the zoom, which is you just roll the middle button if you've got it. If you're not using a mouse, then the buttons down here should take care of it. There's a zoom button, and there's the sub-object move around button, and there's the pan button. So this is panning. This other thing is panning, yeah. Okay. All right, and then also, for this project, we're going to be using Imperial measurement system. So if you don't already have it set up, go to Customize, and then go to Unit Setup, and click on it. And then you'll see that there's metric there, but I'm doing it in US standard, feet with decimal inches. And I don't know what that is. Just press OK. And now you're mostly set and ready to go. Okay, so first thing we want to do, go to the Create panel on the right side of the screen. First option, click it, make a plane. Click and drag. It doesn't matter how big you make it at first. Just go to Modify and make the length 20 and the width 20. And as a side note, when you do create it, you'll probably have length segments. Just get rid of those and turn it just to 1 for length and width segments in the Modify panel. And then you're also going to want to actually align it to the middle. So go to Move or W on the keyboard. That's a keyboard shortcut. And then right-click on this, on the button up here that says Select and Move. And so you'll get this little box that pops up. It says Move, Transform, Type In. Go to your Absolute World section here for your X, Y, and Z axis, and just right-click on the arrows next to the input where you can put the letters or numbers or whatever. Just right-click on those, and it should set it to the center, so the grid is absolute center of this piece. And once you have that, go back to your Create panel over here, and go to Box. And you just click and drag. Doesn't matter how big when you start, because we're just going to change it really quick right now. And we're just going to make the length in the parameters section down here. Going to make the length 1 and the width 1. And we're going to make this guy like 6 feet. You can do 5 feet or 4 feet, however big you want this guy to be. We're not actually going to model him. It's just representing the height of a person. So it doesn't really matter about that. And what we can do here is you can give him a name. So give a box or something. Box guy, box man. And so we know what it is. And we'll name the floor room. Okay, so the next step is to, well, if you want, you can save at this point. You can go up here and just go to save as and save whatever you want it as. I'm not going to save it, but I recommend that you should save it in case you do make a boo-boo or something, so you can just go back to it if you mess up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up walls for the house. So right-click on the ground, the plane, right-click, and this menu should pop up, and go to Convert to is the last one on this menu, and then go to Editable Poly. And you click it, and now it's made this editable poly that now you can play around with it. And so you now have access to your sub-object menu here, which is a collection of the vertices, edges, border, polygon, and the entire object. What we're going to want to do, though, is go to polygon or face or whatever, and it should come up and be like yellow. And so that basically tells you that it's selected. So from here, you just click on the top face of the plane, and it should change a different color. If it doesn't, it means you probably have something else selected. But or it's different in your settings, and maybe it's not showing a color. But from here, once you have this selected, you want to go to Inset down here in this selection menu. And you don't want to click the word Inset. You want to click the window. So you click the window, and now you get the option to set how thick your wall is going to be. So this is like the inside wall, right? And like you could go like there, but it's not realistic. Like, I don't think walls are really that thick. So you're going to want to go for something like 5 or 4, it doesn't really matter. And then just press OK. So the check mark. And now you've got a nice little layer here for the wall. Next step is going to be to raise this wall. So we're going to click on each one of these. And I should mention that when you do click on these, hold down the Control key, and it will add each section to your selection. And so now you'll have 4 outside boxes are selected. And from here, now you're going to want to extrude. So go back down to this menu you were in before for the inset and go to extrude. But don't click it, the word. Click the box next to it. And now, as you can see, you can now adjust this to be however high up you want it. Typically a wall, like inside a house or something, is around 9 or 10. So I'm going to go around like 9.5. And it doesn't have to be exact, like the 0.333. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's somewhere in that ballpark, then you're good. Oh, yeah. I forgot. I was going to center this guy. I completely forgot about him. Poor little box man. Forgot about him. Okay. So that was just, you don't have to center him, but I don't know. It helps with just organizing everything in the scene. So you can do that if you want. Getting back to the box, though. So now we've got the walls made up. And now it's time to split up these pieces so that we can start making like the windows and the door. So at this point, if you want, you can save because the next part's a little bit tricky. So go ahead and save it, and then we'll move on to this next part. Okay, so from here, you want to go to, you want to still be in this editable poly, like, sub-object selection thing, and go from polygon to edge selection, so that now when you're clicking on the object, you're not clicking, the faces aren't highlighting, you can only click on the edges, and the edges will highlight. So click on one of the edges on the outside wall, and when you have it clicked, just go to ring down here in the menu, and it should go and ring all the edges that are going left to right like that. And now you just go to connect, and you don't click the word, you just click the box. And from there, now you can see that you have the connect edges thing that came up. And so you get to basically decide, you know, how many segments you want on the wall and how much you want them to be apart and how close you want them to be together. For this wall right here, I want to be making a door. And actually, really quick, I'm just going to change the color of this object because it's kind of distracting here. I'll go for a lighter color. Okay. And from here, I want to make a door. And so I look at my guy and I look at the door and I say, well, how big do I want that door to be? And you have to picture almost that this person's a little bit fatter because realistically, no one's going to be this skinny. So maybe about like that far out on both sides. So then you just add a little bit from that because it doesn't give you a lot of space in the door, just a little bit. So I would go with about 30. About 30 would be good. And then, of course, you can add other segments if you wanted to put windows here as well. But I'm just going to put a door on this wall. So I'm good with that. I'm happy. So press OK. And now I want to do the same thing for the other side. So hit one of the outer wall pieces on the other side. And actually, yeah. Make sure that you have the entire length of it selected. So to do that, just control and click on each part, and then they should all be red. And then just ring it. So just press ring, and then it should just ring all of them again. And then do the same thing. So go to connect and just go to the window and click it, and they pop up. And I realize that this is actually the wrong side to do it on. You're actually supposed to do it on this side, the one that doesn't have these things. So disregard what I said about having to click on this one again, because you don't really need to touch it anymore. Just get the one that's bare with no lines on it. And just do the same thing that we did for that wall and what we were just going to do. So just ring it and then connect. And now you'll get the same settings as before for this one, but obviously we're not going to use the same settings. But you should keep that in mind, though, for the next thing we're going to adjust. It's very helpful that they stay the same. So just to keep that in mind. I'll probably go with 4 here and just spread them out. And the way I see it, I'm going to do a window here and a window here. So you can do that, or you can even go as even more crazy and do like 10 or 11 and just have really thin, long windows, right? But for this tutorial, I'm just going to do just the 4 segments. And then just press OK when you're satisfied with that. And the OK is actually just a little check mark there that you just saw. So now from here, we need to determine the tops of the windows and the door frame. So we're just going to go here onto one of the corners on the outside and just click the corner on the outside. And then hit ring again, and then go to connect. And now you've got this pattern running down vertically down it. And so this is, now we get to decide the top of the door. I want the door to be about there for the top. But yeah, about there. And I'll keep the amount of segments just so that my windows can be a little bit lower, because I'm going to put my windows right there so they're eye level. And so that goes all the way around outside the object, and that's good. So 4 and 0 and 0, that's what I have it at, and okay. And if you notice, if you look inside, you see that there's no edges or anything inside other than the vertical ones. You don't see any horizontal ones going across. And that's because when we did these, it only did the outside. So we got to do the same thing for the inside. So we just click on one of the edges and make sure that you're not pulling the edge when you do this, but click on one of the edges on the inside and go back down to ring again and ring it again, and then connect again. And so this is where that thing about the settings being the same comes into play. Before I was telling you about the settings being the same, it's very good for this particular part, because instead of us having to try to line up this line with this line, or like on that side and then on that side, it's already taken care of because this thing kept the same amount of distance and everything. So obviously we want to keep that, so we'll go with okay. And at this point you should save, because now we've got everything lined up. And what you also notice here when you're working here is, if you look at these lines here, because we were trying to make a straight edge across the entire thing, right? So that it will cut and be straight. And this line is curved. And it may seem like a really subtle curve, like a very small curve. But when we actually go and start like cutting into the windows and stuff, they're gonna be lopsided. Like they're gonna have a slant like that. And I don't know about you, like personally, I would like it to be straight at first, and then I could make my adjustments later, instead of having to have it come out warped and then try to line it up, which is even more infuriating. So it's better to line it up first before you rip it apart and break it down. So we're just going to go to the top view right now, and there's two ways to do this to get to top view. One way is you can go and click on the perspective up here and go to top. And then there's also the keyboard shortcut, which is T. So we'll do that. We'll click on this, and we'll get a top-down view of the house so that we can line these up and make them straight. And the way we do this is we go to the vertex selection in the sub-object menu and click on that, and now that one's yellow, and it's the little dots as the vertex. And what we're going to do is we're going to straighten everything out. So zoom out here, get a full view of this whole thing, and using your mouse, just click and drag to make a selection, and select all the verts going in that straight line. And then from there, when that's selected, when they're all selected, now you can adjust them so that they're all straight. And in order to do this, you have to go up to scaling, the scaling tool. So you can either click it here, or you can just press R on your keyboard, so the R key. And now just take my mouse and hover over the Is that the x-axis? Yeah, that's the x-axis. Okay, so hover over the x-axis. You might have it a little bit different based on how you approached it. And this might be the y-axis. But still, if you're dealing with the vertical, it's better to adjust on this axis, because if you do it on this one, then it doesn't really adjust anything. It just makes it all wonky. And yeah, so we go onto this axis. And if you notice, if we move it the one way, you can see how deformed it gets. And even more so when the polys start colliding, it's really nuts. So we don't want to go that way. We want to go the other way. And so we'll keep moving the mouse this way over and over until, if you notice, my mouse is moving across the screen like crazy and it's not going anywhere, which means it's an absolute straight line and it's not going anywhere. And so at that point, that means that basically tells you that, hey, you know, this line is ready. And it's straight. It's actually straight. It's not off or anything. And so we'll do that with this one too. So just select all the verts and then just drag it until it's straight. And we'll do it with this one. And we'll do it with everything except the outside. So I'm done this one, but I'm not going to do these ones because this is actually the frame of the house. Like, this is the inside, like this is inside the wall. And if you get rid of that, then you get rid of the wall, and it'd become paper thin, and it would actually the faces would be on top of each other, and they'd be occupying the same space, and it would actually create a visual like a glitch. Like, it wouldn't look proper. It would look very deformed. Yeah, so we'll just adjust this side too. And using the x-axis, drag. And done. Let go, and it's straight. And now we want to do it with the top ones too. So you can either... Well, I don't know. I don't really have the option here to turn it. So if you do have that option, you can turn that, and then this will be... these lines will be straight instead, and then you can just do the same thing going horizontal again. But it doesn't really matter. It's just your preference, really. Now notice if I go this way, it's deformed, so I have to go that way. Now it's straight, and then do the same thing with these ones, and it's straight. And now everything's straight. It's all perfect. So now let's go back to perspective. The shortcut on the keyboard is P, so just hit P. And now everything's back to normal. It's looking good. Okay, so at this point, now you might want to save because it's a little bit complex what we just did. So we're going to move on to ripping down the door. And to do this, basically just go back to your selection menu, go from verts, go to polygon. And now using your left mouse click and the control button, just click on the spaces you want to get rid of to make your door, and then just hit the delete key, or you could right click and delete, cut. I don't know. I would just stick with the delete key and just delete that. And I'll make 2 windows on this side. Again, using the left mouse click and the control key held down, both. You get that. Just so it's a little bit quicker. And I'll add a window up here, actually. Like a prison cell window or something. So he's like in prison, or sort of. It is a pretty small room. I mean, I think that's like the room size for solitary confinement or something. Probably even less than that. Okay, now one thing that you'll probably notice at this point is that once you've cut them all out, you can see, hey, I can see inside the wall. You know, that's not right. That's something wrong there. And you're right if you're thinking that. and that's because it's not natural. I don't think any house really has like you seeing inside the wall. So in order to fix that, you just go to the edge selection in your sub-object menu and click it. It should be yellow and the little picture of the triangle there. And what you're going to want to do is click on the edges here on the side of the door, like the two edges that you want to join together so that so it's a closed object or like a closed face. What you want to do here is now go to bridge. And instead of hitting the window like we've been doing for the other stuff, we're just going to hit the button because it's the quick and easy version. And we'll just do that for all this. And bridge again. Oh, one thing to note. Underneath, you'll see that there's like this opening inside the wall. And, I mean, it looks a little jarring. And it's on the entire outside of the object, in fact. Like, on the outside of this whole thing. All I would have to say for that is that it's not really that noticeable because this is the part that's going to be sitting on the ground, right? So the significance of these things being closed is really, it doesn't really matter because usually it's sitting on top of grass or like a hill or something. Unless, of course, you have a floating house, in which case then you're going to have to close them off. And I believe the same principle to what I'm doing may apply to the bottom. I haven't actually tried it yet, so if you try it and it works, or if you actually figure out a solution to that, just let me know. Because that is it's very interesting. It's something that, like, I don't know, I was asking myself before about it. I was saying, like, hey, you gotta close that off on the bottom. And I'm not sure exactly how to do it because when we created it, it was actually from an inset from the beginning when we inset the wall and then we extruded. So, okay. Let me see here. And one thing to note about the bridging thing between the edges is it won't bridge if you, like, at least I don't think it will, if you accidentally hit, like, an edge that's not in the same, like, in the same length or the same position, like, same direction, I think. I'm not sure. I think they have to be two edges that are close to each other. I'm not exactly sure. Okay. We're almost done here. Let's go to this wall. And this is pretty straightforward. So just control, and bridge that. And bridge it. Bridge it. And bridge it again. Okay. And now you got a nice looking little box here. Nice little house. Kind of lonely little house, but it's fine. Might add something on later. Give them like a spa room or something, I don't know. Or like a playroom or I don't know. Whatever keeps box people happy. For now, though, I think it's best if we add a door. I don't know about you, but at least on my house, it's it's customary to have a door to get into your house. So we're just going to add a door. So to do that, you have to get out of your edge selection that we were just in. And to get out of it and to get into it, you just kind of click on it. And when you click on it once, it'll be yellow. If you click on it again, it'll go away and whatever. And then just click off your object. Everything will be deselected. And it'll be a nice color. Go to your create panel, up on the top right. Go to create panel. Make another box. It doesn't have to be exact at first when you lay it out. It doesn't have to be the exact dimensions. You just, because you're going to be making the adjustments later, and then you want to move it. And so to move it into position and to scale it and stuff, well, for us, we're going to scale not through this. We're going to scale through the modify panel, and we're just going to go to modify and call it door. And to get to modify, you go from create, from when you made the box, and then just go to the next panel, like next tab, and it says modify. And then you can change the name, change the color. I want to make it like, I don't know, green. Or, yeah, green. And call it door. And then you want to move it into position so that it's not overlapping with anything. And to really check this, I use wireframe. And that's just to make sure that everything's lined up and it's not overlapping or anything. And that one looks like it's not overlapping. That side looks pretty clean too, from what I'm seeing here. So, from what I'm seeing here. So all I need to do is just adjust the height. So I'm just going to bring this up using the arrows on the side of the height adjustment. Just play with that. And now it looks like a perfect fit. Might be a little bit of space in between. And go back from wireframe. Go back to realistic. And to do that, obviously, you have your realistic setting here, and you get to set that all up. Okay. And now the final step in this whole thing until the next time, I think next time we're going to be adding a roof and lighting and stuff. But for now, we're just going to get the door to rotate. And so to do this, having the door selected, obviously, we're going to use the rotate tool or the key, the letter E on the keyboard. If you just press the letter E, you can get the rotate tool. And if you do it right now, you'll notice it's like a revolving door. And it's very well, it's I don't know if anybody actually has a revolving door for the front door to their house, but usually you have a door on like a hinge or something. So in order to replicate or emulate like a hinge on the door, you want to change where the rotation point is, right? Because right now it's in the bottom of the object in the middle, and we want to put it on the side of the object so that it's emulating a hinge. So to do this, we go from the Modify tab and go to Hierarchy and just give that a click. And now you can see that pivot is selected. And we'll just go to Effect Pivot Only. Click that. And you'll see that these like weird like box skeleton arrow things come up. And that's just the reference point. Like that's where the actual rotation point is going to be. And we want to move that. So instead of having the rotate tool right now, we're going to go to the move tool or the W key on the keyboard. And we click that. And now it pops up. And hold on. Yeah, if you do click off of it, you can just click it again and it'll pop up again. Go to wireframe. This makes it a little bit easier, at least At least to me, I think it's a little bit easier. And one thing you got to know about placing the hinges or the rotation point is, well, you have to look at it like you're opening the door to a house or to a room. Does the door, you have to ask yourself if the door goes inside the room or if it goes out into like the hallway or outside of the house. And if the door goes in, then the hinge is going to be on the inside. And if the door's going outwards, then the hinge is going to be on the outside. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put it on the inside because I want to make my door an inside door. Go inside the house. And so now that's set. And go from wireframe, go back to realistic. And now you can see that that thing is set up there. And now I can test this. So to test it, you just go back over to the hierarchy tab that you had selected. Deselect effect pivot only, so that turns off whatever you're doing right now, like affecting pivot. And then just click off of it. And maybe go to another tab or something. Doesn't really matter. But in order to test it, just go back to the door and use your rotate tool, so E or up here, and then just drag it. And if you notice, since I have the hinge on the inside, when I go this way, it absorbs into the wall, so it's not natural. It looks really like goofy and silly, and doesn't look realistic. So if you go on the inside, you can see how it opens, and there's no collision or anything. It's very clean. The only collision comes when you actually push it through like the wall, in which case, yeah, obviously there's going to be it's not going to look natural. But doors typically don't go through walls like that, so it's all good. But if you look at it from like this angle, look at that. Nothing colliding. And if there is collision, which you can sort of, it's not that big, it's maybe only like a little bit, but you can sort of see the collision near the end there. And to fight that, you would just adjust that pivot point again. And to do that, you just go back to your hierarchy with this selected, affect pivot only, and just move it to the exact point that you want it to be at. And that's pretty much all there is to that. And so if I click off that, and now I zoom out, now we've got a reasonably well-built house. Questionable window design, but nonetheless, pretty good. If you have any questions, leave a comment, or the next tutorial, or video response or something, doesn't really matter. And the lighting and the land, and maybe modeling the person. Okay. Have a good day.